Friday, we'll see 60 some of you. I asked the credentials for the numbers for us. I think I might have shared this out at some point, but so for our district, we have 71 students that have 6 courses or above in the ministerial studies. 71. We have 71 that have 5 courses or less in the course of study, which makes 142 students in the course of study on the Joplin district. How's that for a deal? We're going to bring in 16 first-time licensees if things work out well, and we'll ordain 13 on Monday night at assembly. So what a celebration. God is just continuing to do great things on the district, and we're excited. All right. Well, I think she has started the recording, so we'll just go ahead and jump into tonight, and there'll be those who will watch us recorded later, and they got stuff going on. I understand that, but thank you all for joining. And so is there any, before we start, is there any questions on Thursday or Friday for me before we jump into the lesson? Because when I finish, I'm going to pray tonight. Any questions? Anybody have anything you want to ask that maybe you didn't get asked, especially if you were in the assessments?
I think I already asked about the confirmation, the Zoom link, but other than that.
Okay. Angie is listening, so she'll probably shoot that out, Chris. She's hearing you make that request.
Okay. Thank you, Angie.
We love Angie around here, that's for sure.
Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, let's jump into it. I think this is a great lesson. I think you're going to enjoy it, and I know there'll be something in here that will help you out. So 7 relational abilities every leader needs. Number 1, empathy. Didn't say sympathy, I said empathy. There's a difference, okay? So the ability to put your own experiences on the back burner and into the experiences of another person. Empathy is not necessarily being positive. It is, however, the ability to not only hear, but to listen to the other party. So right off the bat, there is a difference between hearing and listening. And if you talk to a counselor, if you need to talk to a counselor to figure that out, good. If you don't understand that, just look over at your spouse and say, is there a difference between listening and hearing? And I'm sure you'll get the proper definition of that. Okay. and don't talk to me after the damage is done. All right. You are foolish enough to ask the question. You ought to get what you deserve. When you're discouraged and when they're discouraged, okay. I think we have a tendency to play down maybe what they're going through. So here's what I know. The younger or the less experienced a person is in life, the more when the event happens, the bigger it is to them. Okay. So if you're older, you have a tendency to do the oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And what you're really saying is, yeah, I've been through that, I've done that, you'll live. Suck it up, buttercup. Let's go on. Okay. That's probably not what they're after at that moment. All right. So they're wanting you to listen and to hear and to respond appropriately at the right time. Giving advice at the time you listen may not be good at a good listening timing. When I was thinking about this, I thought about Rhonda and I. Early on in our marriage, she would come home and she would want to talk about either something at church or something at school and how a student was acting out or how a teacher was just disrespectful or whatever. The minute she told me the problem, I solved it for her. And I patted myself on the back. What a hero. What a guy. There's not a problem I can't solve. Okay. And then she would continue to talk on and start crying. And I'm saying, hey, I just solved your problem. And she would say something like this: I don't need you to solve my problem. I need for you to listen to my problem. Okay. That's when learned to shut up, Phil. All right. Now I know probably somebody like Jake Blankenship or here's Brent. They probably got all this figured out, and they have never ever made that mistake before. But right, Brent, you've never made that. Yeah, that's what I thought. There we go. What a guy. But the task for us here is to listen, to listen, to listen. Okay. So don't let your experience or your age push down that process of when you're working on relationships and you're working at empathy. All right, walking in their path. Um, I guess the final last thing I would say on this one is it's easy to have empathy when you have walked through a situation that they're talking about. It's much harder to have empathy when you have never walked through what they're talking about. So I'm gonna give you a serious situation so you'll understand this. I'm not making light of anybody on anything on this. Okay, it is much it is much more difficult for a male pastor to listen to a female person at the church talk about how she has been molested when she was little than it is for a female who has been molested to listen to a girl share her story about being molested. Am I making sense for you? Okay. Whatever you do, do not play those moments down. All right. Don, if I had you, hey, would you amen me on this? Okay. All right. So don't play those moments down. They're crucial. They're crucial to that female. And if it was a boy, they're crucial to the boy. Okay. I'm not just trying to, it happens both ways. So be careful about your empathy, work towards it, and do your best to have a tender heart. All right. Number two, relational independence is to see people as separate from you and from their roles with you. If you're a pastor, if you're not careful, you can always be seen as the pastor. And some of you would understand this in a strong way. You not only are the pastor, but you're the husband or you're the wife, you're the mom or the dad, you're the grandma or the grandpa, and sometimes you're just a friend. And the friend is different than the pastor. We have a tendency to mix the two up. And when we do, if we're not careful, we'll damage our relationships with the people that we surround ourselves with. Everyone that you're in contact with, they have dreams and plans. Often their dreams and their plans are not your dreams and plans. I think this is true for even our kids. Those of you who have children, is if we're not careful, we'll play out our dreams into their lives. I've seen parents live out their lives through their children, especially after graduation, because they had lived their lives through their kids during school, the years of school. And when those kids leave, those parents are lost. They don't know what to do or even how to do things. And so the difference of letting people have their dreams and you having your expectations of them in that relationship are significant. What you are excited about may not be what they're excited about. This one fits in so many ways. I was talking with the DS a while ago, and we're talking about this issue of how do you get somebody excited about something that they're not excited about? How does a pastor lead a church let's stay with them. Let's stay with M25. How does a pastor lead a church into soul winning when they're not excited about soul winning? How do you move a church that has gotten comfortable with people going to hell and it not bothering them to getting them to a spot where they are uncomfortable about people dying because they could be going to hell? How do you move to that spot? And I was in a group, had a group of pastors today at noon, and I was reminded again that Maxwell reminds us that when we talk about these type of things and we're setting goals, we would say, as a church, what are we not accomplishing? And if we said, well, we need to win more souls, we need to have more people called into ministry, we need more people involved in ministry, he would say that's a great question to have, but that's not the best question to have, because the best question to have the best question is to say, how can I help my people into that area? So Maxwell would say the responsibility of leadership there is not necessarily falling only on the congregation and you not doing anything about it. The responsibility of that is you. If your church is not, if they don't have a passion for souls, it might be that the pastor does not have a passion for souls. Everybody hanging in there with me? It's easy to become complacent and lackadaisical on certain things, okay? And things don't bother you anymore. You're just trying to get through. But if you're going to lead and lead well, there are certain things in ministry that need to bother you all the time. Your thinking needs to be generated every time you're thinking about things. So I would encourage you and challenge you. I love Maxwell's thinking. What are the things we need to do? And so to this DS, I said, what are the things you want to do on your district? Now, ask yourself, in order to do that, what do I have to do as the leader to get us there? So if your church is not as passionate about souls as they should be, then what do you have to do to change that to make it happen? I loved Dylan Robinson forward a note a while ago, and he shared the Facebook page on M25. In it, he said, "This has freshly stirred my soul about winning people to Christ." Okay. And if there was anybody that's passionate, I think, about winning people to Jesus, Dylan's all in on that. But to be freshly stirred, that's a good reminder for all of us on that process. Okay. So we ask the question, what are you excited about? They may not be. The first illustration is, what motivates the people you work with? Find out what are their strengths, and then find out what are their love languages. Now, when I was working on this, I realized this might sound a little goofy. We don't have any problem with the strengths, okay, because as a pastor, I put my board strengths right above my board agenda notebook. So anytime there's discussion going on, I looked at the strengths list. And when that person frustrated me, I looked down at their strengths to realize, oh, the reason this is a problem is because this is what their strength is. Now, so I need to back off and rethink this. All right. I never once thought the idea of, would it be a good idea to get the love languages of my board? Now, I want you to think about it just a second. Why would you want that? Why would that help you in ministry to know the love languages of your church board? Are you thinking? There are going to be some people that you're going to want to touch in the board meeting. Hey, how are you, Joe? Man, it's good to see you. And you touch them. There'll be some people on your board you don't want to touch. They are not into touch. Don't do touch. Okay. Now they might be into time. They might be into whatever, the one of the fives. But what I'm saying is, if you know what they are, You can better relate to them in relationship. You will be a better leader when you know the strengths of your board and the love languages of your board. Okay. You will lead better. Number three, relationships and reality. Reality is whatever is true, whether positive or negative. This line I learned a long time ago is still true today. For every person that you're dealing with, perception is their reality. Their perception is their reality. And once they get to that spot, it's really tough to move them from that. Okay. So when you're dealing with people and situations, try to figure out where they're coming from so you can understand where they're coming from. If a family has been a guy or gal has been poor all of their life, they are not going to be for a church board that would be lavishly, easily spending money. Okay. And so when you start spending money, that family that's had to scrimp and save for every dime is not going to be for that. And you've been frustrated because you're thinking, this is a great idea. Why don't we do this? And they're thinking, I cannot believe we're spending money on such a foolish thing. So you would be wise to go to that person and talk to them before the board meeting. So here's the board meeting, here's the meeting before the meeting, right? You've heard me say this before. Meetings before the meetings are crucial. Meetings after the meetings are disasters. Okay? So if you have more meetings after the meeting, you have a problem. And you have got to figure out how to stop the problem. Okay? So you want meetings before, you don't want meetings after. If this is all you deal with in the reality, then without relationship, if you are only looking at reality and not relationship, okay, you will end up with chaos because you are trying to somehow pull out the emotions and the relationships out of the events, and you need the relationships locked into the events. The events determine the relationships, and the relationships determine the events. When you try to pull them apart and work with one or the other, you're headed in a place you don't want to go. Reality or truth is easier to take if they're in relationship. So if you're gonna preach a tough message, okay, it always helps to be in good relationship with the church. If you're going to talk to a board member about some tough things, it's always good to be in relationship with them. If you have to make tough decisions as a church board, it's good to have and be in good relationships. The tougher the relationship, the harder the decision is. And if they don't like you at all, good luck. Okay. So, so, so don't call me, call the other DS. Okay. On that one. Relationship moments um, usually have warmth and welcome into it. And truth moments often can be cold, harsh, and disconnected. Your goal is on the truth moments to have enough relationship so that you change the cold, the harsh, and the disconnected. Because if the cold, the harsh, and the even though you spoke truth into it, and even though you handled a tough issue, it will not have ingrained into their life because they built up a wall and they did not hear everything that you said. Now, in case you're wondering, this to me, this is really good stuff. This is going to help you. Okay, so don't get frustrated with me. Hang in there with me. But this stuff is the kind of stuff. If we'll face it, it will help us when we delve into relationships and working with people that are all around us. So, what's the danger in all of this? The danger is when you have too much relationship and not enough reality. Now, we could stop right there and talk about that one all night long. That's when you love them and you care about them, and oh, you would never want to hurt them, but you know that you saw that keg of beer or whatever in the truck, or you saw that drug, or you saw that magazine, or you saw that phone on the wrong side. You saw it. Their spouse saw it, and you don't want to hurt them, so you're going to let them go on. Okay, that's when you have too much relationship and not enough truth. And folks, we need leaders who will proclaim the truth, even though it hurts. I don't think Jesus went through the crowd going, "Oh, I don't want to tell you the answer to that. It'll probably hurt too much. Let's go on and let's go eat." No, you see Jesus dealing with the issue, responding, and sometimes even in himself initiating the conversation in the truth. So let's be conveyors of truth, balanced with the relationship. Number 4, motivation. How do you motivate? Um, I don't like my answer to this. If you'll notice, it's the first one. I think for a long time, I had a tendency to motivate by being negative. Looking back, I don't like it. I think I did. I wish I could go back and fix it. I can't. The only thing I can do is I can change now how I try to do that. The second one is be a commando. You can you can just ride roughshod over everybody and do it. You'll leave them in your tracks. Not everybody's going to follow. Or the last one is Maxwell would use this one, and he would say some people try to lead by position. You think because you're the pastor, you're the leader. I had a chance to talk to the students at Mid America yesterday, and I gave them the story of Maxwell and Clyde and all the guys that he tells about his first church, that Maxwell thought he was the leader because he was the pastor, and then he found out that Claude was the leader of the church, and Benny was second in command. And it took him a hard time the first few days to figure that out. To his kudos, by the second month, he'd figured it out. So, I gave him grants for that, for figuring it out. Sometimes we lead, we think we're the leader because of the position we're in. Okay. And we use these 3 things to motivate, and really none of them are the best. It helps us to understand that everyone's not motivated the same. You cannot create a passion, but you can direct it. Okay. Here's what I know in athletics. There are some people who have it and some people who don't. And the people who don't aren't going to get it. That's just the way it is. You might get better, but you are not going to have the talent that some people have because it's just a natural thing for them. Some people are natural with their hands. A great, sorry, girls, you'll shoot me for this. This is baseball. A guy can be slow as molasses in baseball. He makes a great third baseman because he has soft. We call him soft hands. He's quick with his hands. Slow, oh my word. Going from second to third, it's like somebody go pick him up and carry him. He's not going to make it. Okay. But will he start at third? Yes, he will. Why? Because he has soft hands. He's quick. Boom, boom, boom. How do you get that? Beats me. It's natural. Okay. Some people just have some of this. Others don't have it, but can attain it. And sometimes we say in our own life, well, I'm not a leader. And I want to say to you, you're not because you don't think you can be. I think you all can be leaders. And I think you all can raise the abilities of your leadership one notch at a time if you work at it. I don't think you have to stay where you're at. I think you can keep moving up and become a better leader all the time. So don't use the excuse, well, I just don't have that. You can get better at those things. You say, well, you just used a baseball illustration that says you can't. I know that. There are some things you're not going to be able to do, okay? But what you can do is show up, get after it, start learning, work at it. You cannot create passion, but you can direct it. Has anybody been, this sounds like a dumb question, but has anybody been to the museum at the in Louisville at the Derby? Has anybody been there? Okay, got one, two. Okay. So in it is the museum. Does anybody remember the horse that has set the record for speed and has won the Triple Crown? Anybody know the name of that horse?
Secretariat.
Secretariat. I heard somebody say that. That's correct. Do you know that Secretariat's heart was oversized? Did you know that he had an extra muscle in his thigh? And the height of his ability, the height of not his head, but the height of his body was higher than the normal horse. In other words, Secretariat was an animal that was highly unusual. If you had put him out in the pasture, he would have been a great horse to ride, I'm sure. He'd have probably helped you with the cattle, or he'd give great rides to the kids. But somehow Secretariat ended up in the derbies, and he set world records that had yet to be broken. All right. Here's what I'm going to say. When you have a horse like that, he's great over here, but if you direct his passion and his energy and his training, you can make him a great horse. All right. And for all of you, when you come to people in leadership, not everybody has everything, and not everybody will operate like you think they should. But when you find somebody that has passion for souls, then the idea for you is to direct that person in an avenue where they can be used for the kingdom of God. Don't be offended because they are better at it than you are. Don't be offended because their passion's greater for that than you are. In fact, is learn from them. But realize you've got to direct them down the track. Your goal is to direct the track. It's not that you're the best derby guy, but you've got the horse that can win the thing. In all of our lives, there are people around us who do something better than you do. Okay? Don't nix them down. Don't talk negative to them. Feed them so that they go their route. The challenge for me is I've got to make sure that I direct them into lane number one and use their abilities as best suited. All right. So when that happens, then we celebrate the victories. And so celebrate if you can celebrate the victories, people will repeat the victories. So in your church, if somebody's doing something right, or somebody comes to know Christ, or somebody, I don't care, somebody mowed the yard, hey, every once in a while, bring them up in front of the church, give them a bag of M&Ms and say, look, we want to thank so-and-so for what they've done, or they've been a door greeter for 20 consecutive years. This is wonderful. And they smile while they do it. And let's celebrate, okay? When you celebrate, you often will get those things repeated. If you don't celebrate it and you don't tell people thank you, eventually they will quit. How many of you like to be thanked for what you do? Right? All of us are raising our hands, right? I mean, we're all going, yes, that's okay. Then we have to do it. You're the leader. Lead your church to be thankful, okay? And what will happen is not only will you do it, but they will start doing it in other settings. And so what gets celebrated gets repeated. be careful here um, with this next one is don't only give attention in negative moments, but look for positive moments to affirm. Okay. We have a tendency to look and we see something that didn't work, and then we pinpoint it. And I'm okay with that, but I'm also okay with saying we can do this better. What are some ways that we can do this? And it changes how that is brought on into all of their lives. I would rather somebody challenge me than critique me. Let me say that again. I would rather somebody challenge me than critique me. I'm letting that soak. Okay. I don't want somebody to come and tell me I preached a terrible message. I would much rather hear somebody say, man, I would love to hear you preach on such and such, such and such, such and such. Now, whatever. You get the idea. All right. Then don't let junk build up in your relationships and in your ministry until when you communicate your concern, all you do are blasting them. Bill Gaither and Gloria Gaither wrote a song years ago. It's a powerful song. It says, they built the wall one brick at a time. In that song, he talks about the hurts of our lives built up until we can no longer see over the wall. And then the concrete gets hard and you can't break the wall down between the relationships. How did it happen? We built them up one brick at a time. In your relationships as pastors, when things are going wrong, if you don't address things when they're happening, you are going to allow walls to be built up in your church and in your ministries and in your relationships. And pretty soon the wall will be too high and too strong, and you'll never be able to break it down. The negative part of that is what I've seen people hold on and hold on and hold on, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 months. And then when they go to tell it, they are emotionally caught up in it and they blast the person away that they're trying to help because it comes across so negative, nobody likes it. So you're better off to deal with the issues as quick as you can. I think that's a biblical principle, by the way. As quick as you can, don't let it set, and then work towards agreement of the arrangement of the healing that needs to take place to move you to the next level. Okay, number 5, freedom and ownership. The more autonomy and personal accountability people can handle, the more they are motivated. Good leaders want leeway and space because they are dependable and trustworthy. Gary Swearinger is down here tonight. And Gary, I'm still going to tell this story. So even though you're on here, I'm going to tell it anyway. So I came back on the district, and Gary came up to me at camp and he said, hey, what do you want to do? And I said, I'll do whatever you want. So he gave me an assignment, and I was doing the assignment. And pretty soon Gary called me and he said, how's that going? I said, it's going fine doing this. Okay. And then he called me back a little while later and, hey, how's that going? It's going pretty good. I've got this going on. Called me back again. Hey, how's that going? It's going pretty good. And I said, Gary, I got this. And Gary's like, oh, okay. Well, I was just trying to help, just trying to help, just trying to help. Here's the deal. And here's what's fun about this story is in all of our lives, everybody leads differently. Okay. And when you have somebody that leads, sometimes they're like, got the instructions, I'm good. Okay. The other hand of that is they need to be contacted and said, how you doing? How you doing? How you doing? All right. And you got to figure out who that is and how they doing. All right. So Gary, thank you for following up on that and keeping me walking down the straight and narrow. I appreciate it. All right. So the next one under there is not everyone should get that much room. So in other words, when you're working with people, sometimes you give them leeway, and that's okay if they're a good leader and they are responsible. But what happens if they're not? And you have given them leeway, and by the time you get back to them, you've got a mess. So you've got to figure out how much space do I give them. So I'm not just overseeing their shoulders, but I am leading and directing them. Some people need to be checked on. We talked about that. Some people need encouragement. Others like autonomy. Okay. So freedom and ownership. You got to figure that out. You must know what each leader needs. You can't lead the same way with every leader. I'm giving you some good quotes tonight in case you're wondering. These are pretty good stuff. You can't lead the same way with every leader. You've got to figure out who needs what, and when you figure that out, that will make you a better leader, and they will become a better leader. Okay, number 6, challenge. Settle for complacency or mediocrity. Don't settle for it in the relationship. Don't settle in for the person that you're working with, and don't settle in it for yourself. Complacency or mediocrity. Challenge leaders to lead at higher levels than they have been. Don't let people continue to stay at one level. Keep moving the bar up. Challenges change our body chemistry. One is it raises our adrenaline. When I was doing some work on this one, I was reading about the process of adrenaline, even in the office place and even in leadership, how that when things, when a leader is intrigued by a certain thing, their adrenaline kicks in, even in sitting in a chair, and that causes their thinking to become clearer. It moves away the clouds. It was talking about how it refocuses our thinking and helps us to pinpoint certain things. It's really fascinating to me on that. So it changes our body chemistry. And leaders will rise to the occasion or they won't. So they either will or they won't. I would like one of my many faults. Sandra, Cave, always every time we do the strengths test at assessors, I'm always reminded of my strengths and my weaknesses. Thank you very much, Sandra. And so I was reminded one more time that one of my weaknesses, I just believe everybody can be the greatest. I think I can fix every problem. There's nothing I can't conquer. Together, we're going to take on the world. Bring it on. And Sandra I know she wants to walk over to me and just pat me on the shoulder and say, easy boy, you're not that good. Okay. So forgive me when I have been blinded by my optimism, which I think happens way more than what I want to think on that. So leaders will rise to the occasion or they won't. So we know that people will rise if we can help them. People who love the challenge want leaders to challenge them. I think that's one of the reasons why I love hearing somebody like John Maxwell at M25. When he gets done and when he says there's 53% of the people that drive by your church will never come to your doors, and then he let that sit, and he hit us over the head with a hammer when he said, if I said that to a business world in a marketplace setting, the whole room would have went nuts because they would have said, well, that means we have 53% of the market value to go get. And he said this, the world, yeah. Let me just rephrase it this way so I can get through it emotionally. The world's better at going after money than the church is going after souls. God forgive us. When he says that, I mean, I want to rise up in my seat and I want to go, I don't care what I have to do. That's not going to be my story. I'm not letting that. I mean, I just want to rise up. When you hear him say that, I hope when you're sitting in your chair in your office, when you hear him say that, I hope it bothers you to no end. Okay. If we can look at the world and say, look at the market value, it's opening up for us. Let's go get them. I think that would be honoring to the Lord. Okay. 7, performance feedback. Don't delay performance reviews. Everybody has a tendency in the business world to do them. I shouldn't say that. Sometimes in the business world, performance reviews are only done on a yearly basis. In the church world, they're done less than that. Normally, I know of very few pastors that have a performance review given to the church, given by the church board on a yearly basis. Okay. I would challenge you and encourage you that if you are open to that, I would create your own performance review once a year that the board talk to you about what's going on, what's going well, what's not going well, what can you do better. You don't have to have an all-out meeting about it, but let's figure out if there's things that you can do better that will help out when you have your review in 3 or 4 years. Okay, that would be a great move. But what I'd also say to you is when things are going the wrong direction or things have been said the wrong direction, or if there's an attitude problem inside of the church or inside of the office or in relationships or in the staff, don't don't wait for the delayed performance review to talk about the truth. Okay? You might give it a few hours, but come on. Let's talk about what can we do better and why did this hurt and what happened here, and let's be truthful. Let's have an atmosphere of truth in the life of the church so that you're always trying to have an open line with everybody that's there. You're not afraid to address the hidden or the unseen, and people know that you will listen to their responses. There is a difference between hearing and listening, and people need to know that you do both. Okay? So let me stop there. And if there's questions or anything I need to be clearer on, or maybe you have a comment you want to make or a question you want to ask. So just unmute it and go after it. Anybody? You can make my statements better. I mean, if you got something else to say to it, I'm all for it, man. Open up. Anybody?
I like a statement, Phil, that you said about don't only give negative moments, attention, negative attention. You told me once that healthy sheep are cared for daily, but only sheared in due season. And that has stuck with me this whole time. There ain't no point in shearing them when they don't need sheared. So, yeah, that's stuck with me. I just thought I'd throw that out
Okay,
there.
that's all right. Yeah, shearing sheep in the wrong season always brings blood. Yeah. Anybody else? Everybody good? Well, you guys are awful kind tonight. Okay. Well, let me
I,
pray for us tonight as we leave. And I want to pray for all the students that will be coming in on Thursday and Friday. And then I want to pray for you that God would help all of us to be people who care so much about the people that we work with in the relationships that we have that we'll do whatever it takes uh, to treat them good. Okay. Oops, got a question here. What was word on number 3 statement? Number 3 is relationships and reality, and then perception is reality. That answer that? Did I miss any other chats?
There was one thing that said, though you need the truth, and there's a blank in there. The blank is relationship.
Okay, relationship. Thanks, Dave.
I have a question.
Yeah.
When you talk about an annual performance review, like what kind of questions would be good to ask the board? Like what are we talking about when we're talking about what do we need to address in a performance review for me, speaking about me or even the board, just what are some specific key areas that that we need to focus on as far as reviewing and making sure that, we're not down here, but we're shooting for excellence in what we do and how we serve the kingdom.
Yeah. The one I created as a pastor was five. I had 5 areas, and we kept that one simple. And then I had questions. I broke those topics down, and they rated them from 1 to 10. So we could come out with a composite score to figure out where I was at. When I became DS, I took those and I broke them down a little bit in a different way, same area. So it'd be questions like, well, our first response is, well, tell me how I'm preaching. But the reality is, for the most part, your board is going to be looking at how do you lead. So you'd want to be asking questions about, is the vision clear? Have I made the vision or the mission clear? Is the vision, the mission cloudy? Is there anything that's stopping the vision and the mission from being accomplished? You don't necessarily have to ask about yourself, because the answer about the church will show the response of the pastor. So if you've been in a review in the last 3 years, there's been a change. So if even 4 years ago, so there was charts that were scored for you 4 years ago, and then 3 years ago we started to make the change, and then the last 2 years we've made a total change, a total switch over into the Great Commission plan. Okay, so what has happened is the previous administrations have come in and critiqued the pastor. And I've looked at it to say, I believe the whole church should be critiqued. So I can't not tell you how many times when I've left a board meeting, I've heard somebody either speak behind my back, or I don't mean that came across wrong. They were talking behind me. I heard them. I'm okay with it. They simply said, I thought we were doing a pastoral review, but it looked to me like we did a church review tonight. Okay. A church review shows the leadership of the pastor. All right. So I don't necessarily have to talk to you directly. When I ask the question, and I have 7 questions that I ask at the end of every pastoral review. The third question is, what is the mission of the church? When nobody on the church board answers the question, all I have to do is look at the pastor, and I just shrug my shoulders, and they get the idea. What's the idea? The idea is the church board doesn't know what the mission of the church is because you're not telling them.
Right.
So immediately the problem is not the church board. The problem is the pastor. Okay. So what I would say, if you want your preaching reviewed, that's fine. If you want your leadership reviewed, you can score that. If you want your vision implementation, you can do that. A strategic plan, you can do that. Whatever fits you, I'm comfortable with that. I just think you are ahead of the game if you are strong enough to take on a regularly scheduled review that you initiate. That doesn't come from me. It comes from you, and you lead it. I think you're better off. Now, if you want mine, all you got to do is text Angie or email Angie, and I'll have her send you my pastoral one. Okay, my DS one is different. I've created both of them. I know there's that's not true. I only know of one other DS that does a yearly review. And he and I talk all the time, and I know what he's done in that. But that's the only one I know. And his name is Dale Schaefer. So many of you will know Dale. So Dale and I have talked, and so I came into the job before Dale. So I created a review. He followed suit on that and did it also in his own way. That's the only 2 DSs that I know of all the 77 that I'm aware of that do a yearly review. I just think you're ahead of the game. That's just my opinion. Great question, Alan.
Thanks.
So if you need
Appreciate
that,
the
just let
response.
Angie know. She'll send it to you. I mean, it's
Count
not
on
a
it.
secret. I'm glad to send it to you. You can make it fit however you want to fit your context. And that's fine with me. Anybody else? Good questions. Okay. Jesus, we thank you for tonight. I really want something to have said today that would be so encouraging, so life-giving to our leaders that somehow it would change the course and the culture that they're setting. I want you to give strength on Thursday to the interviewers, to the interviewees, to the candidates, to the licensees, to the process. I want you to be pleased with what takes place. Give courage and strength to them. With all the other candidates who will be interviewed on Friday, we pray, Father, that their hearts will be right with you and truth will be revealed into their journeys. But what I pray so much for all of us is what M25 was about. Will you help us? Will you help us to be so locked into seeing men and women and boys and girls come to know Christ that becomes the driving motivation of our lives? So, Father, would you help us in these days to advance the call? A call of salvation, a call to renewal, a call of sanctification, a call to ministry, a call to full-time ministry, a call to part-time ministry. God, help us to open every door that's possible so people can respond to the call of Jesus Christ. Let us be a district, Father, that will advance your call for the sake of the kingdom. Now, keep everybody safe in this weather. Keep them warm, and may your grace be more than enough in these days. In Christ's powerful name we pray. Amen and amen. All right. Hey, thank you. Appreciate you guys joining us. I'll stay on if anybody needs to catch my attention for a little bit, and have a great rest of the evening.
God bless you, Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.